I'm excited. I'm excited to have Jonathon Moir with us for tonight's conversation. We would love to learn a little about you. So if you would please introduce yourself in the chat by sharing your name, your preferred pronoun, city and state, maybe the grade that you teach. My name is Greg Sloan, a lead teacher with Beyond Benign, and I am joined by a team of lead teachers this evening who will be assisting in various capacities behind the scenes, helping things run as smoothly as possible. Please make sure that the name that appears on your screen is the name that you would like to have printed on your certificate of attendance this evening. This is where our staff get the names as they make up those certificates to get them out to you. Also, if you are comfortable doing so, we welcome and encourage you to share your video feed as it fosters a more intimate and engaging experience. We do understand, though, that there are occasions when that's not possible, and we are certainly understanding of that. We would love it if you could join us on social media by following us at Beyond Benign. And you can always give us a shout out if there is content that you've appreciated using in your classroom or you would like to know more about. I would also like to remind everyone that by registering for the webinar series, you've agreed to our code of conduct. We're just essentially asking for participants to be kind, accepting, and open to varying viewpoints and opinions. This series will be recorded. While it is expected that the video feed will focus on the presenter, your voice and video feed could appear at some point. By attending this discussion, you give your consent to allow us to post video and/or sound of you. As we launch into this webinar, we'd also like to pause for a land acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge the unceded land on which Beyond Benign operates. We are located in the state of Massachusetts, which has been the traditional land of the Pawtucket and Massachusetts nations. We acknowledge the history of this land and encourage others to acknowledge the unceded lands and territories belonging to the indigenous nations across the world and wherever you are tuning in from. We would also like to pause just a moment and give thanks to our sponsors who are making this series possible. Beyond Benign is an organization working to foster a green chemistry community that empowers educators to transform chemistry education for a sustainable future. It's our vision to ensure that the chemical building blocks of products used every day are healthy and safe for humans and the environment. We believe that education is the most powerful and critical component to achieving this. That's why we are committed to pioneering a paradigm shift across the continuum of science education. Beyond Benign works across this continuum by investing in educators, fostering peer support networks, and developing tools and resources at all levels. We inspire future chemists as well as educate and inform consumers and citizens with our open access K-12 curricula. We know that the core of our work starts with demystifying and sparking a curiosity and interest in chemistry early on. Sparking that interest allows us to begin to lay the foundation for those needed green chemistry skills by educating future scientists and training the next generation of innovators. The goal is that by preparing 21st century chemists, they will be the agents of change as they innovate for sustainability and implement sustainable practices within industry. If global consumers feel strongly that industry should help improve the environment, and the growth of the chemical market is expected to double by 2030, then there is a demand for green chemistry skills in the workforce. If we expect the next generation of chemists to evoke real change and implement sustainable practices through industry, we need to support their education, preparation, and training. We're excited to feature dialogue this evening around the green chemistry teaching and learning community. This is going to be a great avenue to interact, connect, and learn from each other across the continuum to foster the needs of the next generation of chemistry innovators. On March 27th, Millipore Sigma, the US and Canada life science business of Merck KGaA, Darmstadt, Germany, which is a leading science and technology company, along with Beyond Benign, announced an expanded partnership to increase global access to green chemistry education. This plan is to help transform chemistry education and better prepare next generation scientists with the skills to address sustainability through chemistry. Working together, Millipore Sigma and Beyond Benign will provide expanded access to resources, as well as the support needed to apply greener practices in chemistry education. This contribution, along with the contributions of the founding sponsors listed here, will enhance our green chemistry teaching and learning community online platform, which you will hear more about this evening. The goal is that we will expand global access to resources and trainings for thousands of faculty members at hundreds of institutions, reaching students worldwide. These combined efforts will advance the goal of Beyond Benign to provide an ever-increasing percentage of chemistry students green chemistry knowledge. Our goal tonight is to have an interactive session to share with you a sneak peek at the GCTLC platform, design, and functionality, as we seek community feedback ahead of the August launch. If you have questions during the presentation portion, please type those in the chat. So allow me now to introduce our guest presenter, Dr. Jonathon Moir, who is the Program Manager for the Green Chemistry Teaching and Learning Community. Jonathon is a passionate scientific researcher and professional with a keen interest in chemistry education and advancing sustainability and green chemistry across all levels of pedagogy and learning. He received his Bachelor's of Science honors from Queen's University in 2010 and his PhD from the University of Toronto in 2016 in organic chemistry with a focus on nanomaterials and electrochemistry. During his doctoral studies, Jonathon was a founding member of the Green Chemistry Initiative, a group of graduate students dedicated to promoting green chemistry principles and practices within the Department of Chemistry at the University of Toronto. In addition to co-leading the GCI's regular Green Chemistry Seminar Series and its 2015 annual symposium, Jonathon redeveloped a third-year undergraduate organic chemistry lab in collaboration with Professor Andy Dix to include more concepts related to green chemistry, and later attended the ACS Green Chemistry Summer School in 2016. Following graduate school, Jonathon transitioned to the not-for-profit sector, where he has helped manage and support the development of international interdisciplinary research programs, scientific projects, workshops, and symposia, as well as a national scholarship program in Canada for graduate students and postdoctoral fellows pursuing research in Canada's Arctic and northern regions. Jonathon is excited to be working together with Beyond Benign and the ACS GCI to lead the development of the green chemistry teaching and learning community set to launch August 2023. Jonathon currently lives in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and enjoys sports of all kinds, including swimming, skiing, rowing, cycling, and weightlifting. If you have any questions at all during the presentation, please go ahead and type those in the chat. We will have a team of lead teachers standing by, monitoring the chat to try and get those answered for you there or immediately following the presentation. So now I would like to turn the dialogue over to Dr. Jonathon Moir.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Greg. I really appreciate the introduction, and it's great to see everyone today. I'm really thrilled to be here to be able to talk to you guys and to give you a sneak peek at the GCTLC platform. It's really great and very critical to get all of your feedback on how things are going, what you like, what you don't like, and really just to see how things are progressing as we're building this platform for launch this summer. So recognizing that what I'm going to show you today is still very much a beta version of the site, but I am excited to share many aspects of it with you and get some initial feedback for all of you. Okay, so I'm going to do a really quick introduction and breeze through some of this. All of you, I think, are probably aware of Beyond Benign's programs and many of the activities that we do. We do have our K-12 program. We have our higher education level as well, the Green Chemistry Commitment, GCC. But I want to talk to you about the middle sort of thrust of our programs on the slide, which is the GCTLC. Before I get into that, just a bit of background. So the whole reason for building this platform came from a lot of discussions with our community back in 2020 and earlier. We had a number of focus groups as well as a survey that went out in 2020, which was a collaborative effort with the ACS Green Chemistry Institute. And this went out to about 17,000 educators within the US and some located outside of it too. But what was determined was, what the goal of the survey was to figure out what are the challenges in bringing green chemistry into the curriculum and what are some of the potential opportunities to get around that. So I'm sharing just a couple of data points from this, but this one graph shows what are some of the common challenges and obstacles that educators face when bringing green chemistry in. And of course, you see the biggest one there is a crowded or full curriculum. Often it's also lack of knowledge in the content area, lack of materials, cost to develop new materials, identifying relevant topics, etc. So when looking at what are some of the potential ways around that, what are some of the ways that educators could feel more prepared, a lot of them indicated professional development, additional training, but one of the ones that really jumped out was teaching and learning community or online community of practice. And these types of communities can actually provide a lot of support in terms of online peer-to-peer learning, mentorship, access to resources, access to courses, things like that. So we decided at that time to look into getting seed funding. We got some seed funding from one sponsor, one foundation in particular. We continued to build that funding over the last 2 to 3 years, and we're now at the point where we're launching the site. So it's very exciting. I won't talk a lot about this. I will probably actually skip over most of this, but just so you are aware, the importance of communities of practice in terms of creating change and systemic change in education is really important. And so what we're aiming for is a community of transformation, shown there at the bottom. Communities of transformation really have common elements to them. That is a compelling philosophy, a living integration of philosophy through all their work and activities, and a network of peers to break isolation and brainstorm together. So there's many reported advantages of that, and there's a number of journal articles there at the bottom that really show many of the advantages and benefits to these types of communities, especially in STEM education. Okay, so the GCTLC, as I'm going to show you momentarily, this is an online platform that is really meant to be both an online resource hub that is open access resources, a searchable library of educational materials, as well as a place where users can come, connect with each other, learn from each other, post in forums, join groups, post upcoming events, post jobs to the job board. So many different ways to connect within an online space. Now, none of this would have been possible without our wonderful leadership committee, several members of which are on this call, and I am extremely grateful to all of them for their work and support in this. They have been working very hard in the last 2 years, helping me to identify what are the critical aspects of a platform like this, what do we need to be taking into account, what are the things that we should be looking for, what would be the needs of educators coming in, how do we best fill those needs. So this group of 19 individuals has been really, really, truly helpful, and I can't thank them enough for their time and effort on this. So this is the mission and vision, the core values for the platform. I won't go into detail on this, but I did want to mention a couple of other platforms that we did look at in the process of scoping to get a sense of what other systems already exist out there and can we learn from them. So a few that some of you may be aware of already, depending on if they overlap with some of your teaching. One is called EE-Pro. That's the North American Association for Environmental Education, NAAE, their platform, and which has many of the similar features to the GCTLC. So user profiles, group spaces, a job board, professional learning, online courses, workshops, etc. Really lovely site. NanoHub, which is more focused on nanomaterials, science and research, more for data simulation, but a lot of similar features that we found very instructive. And then Cubes, which is the quantitative undergraduate biology education synthesis. So this is a platform that was launched by BioQuest, and that's an organization focused on biology education with a more specific focus on quantitative and mathematical modeling. But they have a number of wonderful resources on their site too. So I encourage you to check them out if that is of interest. Ultimately, through scoping with these different organizations and platforms, we decided on a developer. Our developer is Square. They have a lot of expertise in building these types of sites, and we were really excited to work with them and have been working for them over the past 13 months. And so again, we're excited to be launching it this summer. We are currently in phase 1, and we're beta testing for our hard launch coming up in a couple months. Of course, we're also planning to do a phase 2 development, which will happen starting probably this year and then moving into future years. But we hope to build on the core functionality we're doing right now so that we can expand that a little bit later. So these are the major features in that first phase, and I'm going to show you some of the ones right now that we've built out. So users, user profiles, dashboards, the learning objects, which is our library of educational materials, Groups, collaboration, networking, we won't focus as much on that today. Reporting, website design and flow, and then some additional things. So you'll see some of these in action as we launch into them momentarily. Okay, so if there aren't, are there any actually major questions from this part yet? And you can also feel free to unmute if you'd like at any point in time. If you have a question, feel free to go ahead. But if not, I'm going to launch right into it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drop this link in the chat. And what I would encourage everyone to do is to actually follow along as I'm doing this. You can actually go to the site. So the site is live. Now it's technically a development site, which means that anything that we do in the site might eventually break. It might eventually get deleted. The point of the development site is to really play around with the settings, make sure things are flowing well, try new things. And this is for the developers to really have a chance to build what we need it to do. So recognizing that, we are able to go in and actually create user profiles, try things out, explore the site, but know that things may change quickly and this is not the final version of the site. We will be launching the final version of the site this summer. This is really meant to just get a sense of what it looks like and how it's going to work, generally speaking. However, as I'm going through this, I do encourage you to follow along. You can go through the forms as I'm going through them, try them out yourself on your own computer. And if you come across any issues, please do let me know. But again, don't expect it to be perfect yet because it's not quite there. But we do appreciate your feedback as we're walking through it. All right. So this is the GCTLC as we've currently built it. Now, we, again, did a lot of scoping of other sites and we looked at the various ways that we wanted to try to lay it out. So I welcome feedback on the layout, on the navigation, things like that, and we'll get to some of those questions later. At the top, you'll see the main menu. This is a mega menu, so it does have a lot of options underneath it. We tried to keep it sort of slim and trimlined at the top, but can expand to all the necessary things at the bottom. So in the About tab, we've got a lot of basic information. Note that a lot of these don't have links yet because we actually haven't built these pages, but they are going to be in construction soon. We also have a resources tab. So this is where you can access the full library of educational materials. We search for full database. Again, many of the other pages are not yet built, but we will have things like curated collections, which will also be collections of resources and objects that form, for example, a full semester course or a full guidebook or textbook, things like that. Finally, we have our community tab. This is where you can find other users. You can find the forums, the groups, institutions, events calendar, job postings, things like that. Now, again, not all the links are working. Groups are still fully under construction, so that's not done yet. Forums are usable, but they're still not cleaned up, but we will look at them briefly. And the people page has a couple of issues in terms of the searching right now. So it is not perfect, but this is where we're heading. On the home page, you'll see as you scroll down a bit, we do have the Learn, Share, Connect, Grow. So these are sort of action-oriented icons, and we want people to be very easily able to find what they need to find right off the bat. So this we felt was very important at the top of the homepage. We also really wanted to emphasize the importance of community building and of DEBR as well. That's our diversity, equity, belonging, and respect. So through this, we will be linking to our code of conduct. Now, I'm extremely proud of this because I'm extremely proud of our leadership committee for all of the work that they did in putting this together. We do have a full code of conduct, including purpose, scope, standards of conduct, prohibited behavior, consequences of reporting of prohibited behavior, consequences thereof, and all those kinds of things. And so this we felt was really critical, especially because we want to make sure we are fostering a safe and supportive online space for people to use. So that will be eventually added to the site, and we're going to be linking to it through this main homepage. As you keep scrolling down, you'll see we have user profiles already in there. So some of our leadership committee members and our staff have been able to try this out. Again, they're just test accounts, so you'll see some funny pictures here and there. Some of the images, of course, are not quite aligned. You'll see some of the figures are sort of in the foreground where they should be in the background, but don't worry about that. We're in the process of fixing that. Groups, again, those are under construction. Upcoming events, again, this should be formatted a bit differently, but you'll be able to access any upcoming events listed here. And then, of course, job and internship postings, which will be there at the bottom. We have our resources, again, a link to the full database. We have to change the color of that font. And then, of course, the footer at the bottom. So that's sort of the main page. And again, we want to make it as easy as possible for people to navigate their way around the site. So if you notice anything that's missing or something that you think should be there, feel free to drop in the chat or let me know, or feel free to unmute as we go through. Okay, so I'm going to walk through the user registration process. And for those of you who have done this before, I apologize if this is a bit repetitive, but I do want to have a chance for everyone to try this out and see how it works. So right now we have at the top right corner of the screen a login button. We'll probably change that to say login/sign up, or maybe have two buttons, but ultimately we will try to make that navigation easier. But if you click on the login button, it will take you to this page. Now, if you already have an account, you can add in your username or email and your password there. Most of you probably don't, and that's okay. So at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the create new account. So you click that blue button. We'll probably move that up a little bit higher on the page eventually. But for now, that's how you can access this page. So in the new user registration, feel free to follow along yourselves. You can create an account for yourself if you'd like. So I'm going to add in mine here. So create a test email. Now, if you say you want to share your email with other members of the community, if you turn it yes or no, if you say yes, it will be added to your user dashboard. Let's add in Uber. Okay. When you get to institution, so you can start typing to see if your institution will show up. We do have an existing list of higher education institutions right now. Unfortunately, we don't have the list of K-12 institutions yet. There are many, many more K-12 institutions than there are higher ed ones. So it's a bit difficult for us to find a full list that we can import into the database. However, if you start typing, say it's, I don't know, something, Teresa, something high school. If it's not there, you can always click create new institution. And when you click that, it will pop up with a number of fields that you can then fill in. So just gonna make up a name. Let's say this is in Calgary. I guess I'm in Vancouver, so I'll put it in Vancouver. And you can indicate the institution type. So I'll say it's a high school. Approximate number of undergraduate chemistry majors. You can leave this blank if it doesn't apply to high school. Number of chemistry degree, same thing. Faculty size. You could include number of teachers if you'd like. And is your institution currently incorporating green chemistry? You can say yes or no. You can also add additional qualifiers. Again, many of these apply more for the higher education level, but if you see anything that do apply, you can also add them here. So I'll just say public. And then awards you can also add if you'd like. So that's it for institution. Once you add that information and you save and you create your account, that institution will then get added to the database of institutions we have. So anyone else from your school that then comes and registers after you will be able to find that school already in the database. I will say K-12 educator. And then we have a series of optional questions. So these are really just demographic questions. They will not be included in the user dashboard. No other users can see these questions. It's just for Beyond Benign and for the GCTLC administrators to be able to then identify gaps, especially if we are not reaching the right communities, if we need to readjust our programming and the content of the website to be more inclusive, to be more equitably dispersed, then that's where we will be able to track these things. So you don't have to answer them if you don't want to. You can also invite eventually up to 5 colleagues to join. So if you were to add their first name, last name, and email, they would get an email saying, please come join the GCTLC. This is not yet set up, but once it is, you'll be able to access them there. And then, of course, to finalize, you will need to agree to the code of conduct, which I did show you, and the terms and conditions, which we have not yet finalized, but both of them will go in here and will appear in these windows. Okay, so once you do that, you save that, you will get an email, and it will provide you with a link, a one-time link, to be able to then sign up with your email account. Now, I'm going to bypass this. I'm just going to log in with my older one. Okay, so I recently created this account, but once you get the link, you can click on it. It will ask you to create a password. Once you've created the password, you can then access your My Account profile page. Once you get there, you'll be able to see there's a number of things that you can edit. There's a number of tabs on the left-hand side. So if you want to edit any of the information, you can just click Edit next to the bio, and you'll find all the information, including the info that you've already put in, and it's all here. So you can add additional things such as your job title, your pronouns if you like. You can change whether your email is shared or not. You can add or remove an image. You can change those demographic questions if you like, the answers that you've already provided. You can also indicate if you prefer not to say, totally up to you. Your institution will again be listed. You can add a bio. Your career stage will be there. Any languages that you speak, if you'd like other users on the platform to know if you speak a different language. If you're an educator, which level do you teach? You can also add your social media accounts. So if I add on Twitter, once I add it in here, we'll actually add it as an icon to the user profile. If you have published materials or you are more focused in university higher ed level, you can also add your Google Scholar, your ORCID ID, or if you publish regularly, you may have those already. Your keyword tags expertise, so you can add any number of expertise. So if I am introductory high school chemistry, maybe I'm also passionate or experienced with organic chemistry, maybe health and safety. So I can add all of those things in. If a tag does not exist in there already, you can also just type it in. And if once you save it, will automatically get added to the library of terms and will be available for others to use. So we'll be regularly monitoring and cleaning up these terms as they go. But we hope that this will help make things a bit more flexible for users. You can indicate your interests. You can also indicate any ongoing projects if you have additional things that you do at your school. If you're doing collaborative work with other schools, you can add all those there. You can add the number of students you teach annually. I don't know, maybe it'll be less than that. This probably is going to get removed. I think that's duplicative. And then any published articles. Again, if you publish regularly or if you have textbooks that you've written or other things, you can include that there. Okay, so once you're done, you can just click Update Your Profile. And you'll see that all those things will become available here. So now there's a Twitter icon here. This will bring me to the Beyond Benign Twitter. You can add your bio. You'll see your languages here, your keyword tags, the level that you teach. If you have any roles within the GCTLC, such as a reviewer or a moderator or anything else, those can appear here. Or if you have any roles with Beyond Benign, if you're a lead teacher or whatever, those will also appear here. Those can be added by the administrators on the back end. Now, this is just your sort of main profile tab. You'll notice there are a number of other tabs on the left-hand side. And we're going to focus more on the learning objects one, which I'll go into in a bit. But within that tab, you'll be able to track any learning objects that you've submitted to the system and that are being either included in the library or under review. Anything, those will all be tracked here and you can find them in your dashboard. There are also groups. So if you've joined any groups, they'll be listed here. Again, the groups are under construction, so we will get to those next month. Any jobs or events that you've also posted in the system, you'll again see that there's a bit of duplication right now, so we have to clean that up. As well as your published articles. This is, again, anything else outside of the GCTLC that you'd like to share with others and let them know that you have put out as well. So that's sort of it for the user dashboard and the user registration. Any major questions about this? Has anyone run into any issues as they were kind of trying to run through the process? Nope. I'm going to assume the chat is.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I was going along with you, and in building a profile, it asks you how many chemistry students you have.
Right.
And then it asks you for the faculty size. So I just jotted on this side, is it the faculty for chemistry or is it faculty for the whole school? Or I might have just been in the wrong place. No.
Right. So I think the terminology that probably came in there was more higher ed focused. And so I think what we
Gotcha.
need to do is adjust it. So what would you think would be better? Maybe just total number of teachers at the school or
Yeah,
educators in the department?
right. I imagine that not only chem teachers will resource this, so maybe how many, faculty size, approximate faculty at your
Mhm,
school, that
mhm.
kind of thing.
Approximate faculty size. Okay, yeah, we can absolutely change the language. That's easy to do. Okay,
Thank you, Jonathan.
no problem. Total faculty of school to get an idea. Okay. Or okay. Sounds good. Alrighty. Any other thoughts or questions about the sort of user registration? And we'll come back to some sort of broader questions about design and navigation and things, but anything particular about the registration part? It's clear as mud. Okay. All right. So I'm going to look a bit at the resources now. So these are the learning objects. And I want to quickly kind of run through how they work, what they look like, and get your sort of general feedback about that too. Now, you can access this from your dashboard. So again, anything that you are submitting to the system will be available here. And just a reminder that the goal of the GCTLC library is to be a community-driven open access resource repository. So any resources that you develop or that you find or that you have seen that you really like or that you'd like to share with the community, whether you develop them or others have developed them, you can add them to the GCTLC library through this process. And the goal is to build this library so that it is a useful resource for anyone coming in who wants to find green chemistry education materials. So that could include in-class activities that you've developed, you'd like to share with others or get feedback on. It can include new lab experiments that you've been testing out. Could include existing lab experiments from elsewhere, if you'd like to link out to them. It can include journal articles or textbooks. Anything that you like can be added to the library. Now, again, provided it has to align with green chemistry and sustainability within science and chemistry. But beyond that, it's pretty flexible. So I want to show you how this works. Now, again, you can submit a resource from your dashboard through the link there, but you can also go to the top menu under resources, and you'll see there's two links. One is search the full database, and the other is submit a resource. Now, if you go to search the full database, I'll show you what the database looks like for now. Right now, there's a lot of filters, but you'll see that it is important as we're planning to have a lot in the library. So we do want to make the searching as easy as possible. But from here, you'll be able to see the list of all resources below. Now, right now, it's just in table format, so it's a little boring to look at, but we're hoping to spruce up the design. But what you'll be able to see is the title of the lab, the actual description, and then any image that's associated with it, and then the submitting or contributing author to the right. You'll see actually that the first two, Janie and Annette, might recognize that these are from our K-12 resources, and I just used them as an example, as a test to see how they upload. But the reactions lab is actually one that Beyond Benign has up on their site, as well as the acids, bases, and pH one too. As you look at the filters, you can filter by any number of things. So if you want to just filter by high school, it will then automatically load only the ones that are specific to high school. If it is specifically graduate professional training, then there's only this one. So you can search by the audience level. You can also search by object type. So if it's a lab experiment, you'll see these first two come up. If it is specifically a journal article, you'll see those first two, the reactions lab and the acids and bases one, are not there. You can also search by green chemistry principle or by the summary. So if you'd like to type in, so lab, it's really only these two and a test one. So again, we're trying to make the searching as easy as possible. We will also probably add in the NGSS field as well. This was brought up the other day as a good filter that we should include, so we will do that. But again, this is the main library page. So if I'd like to submit a resource, I have to be logged in as a user to do that. But that's no problem. Any user who is registered with the platform can submit something to the database. Now, I do want to quickly show you, this is sort of general information about how it works. So anyone who's registered with the GCTLC can submit. It can be anything related to green chemistry, including greener lab experiments, in-class activities, lecture and class slides, assessments, exam and quiz questions, etc. Now, these objects must align with green chemistry sustainability, and they have to go through a simplified review process in order to get in. Again, really, the goal is to just make sure that it aligns with green chemistry and that there is good scientific accuracy and quality of the material, but also that all the attachments have been included, all the relevant information is there. If there's safety information that needs to be added, has it been included? If not, then it needs to be revised before that can be put up on the site. So all those things are important, at least at a very basic level. These are the criteria that it gets assessed on. So it's really, again, alignment with green chem and sustainability, the accessibility, making sure that that sort of scientific accuracy is there, but also the safety. And so with that, plus pedagogical utility, those were the main categories. So you'll see as you go through this, what happens is, as a user, you'll create a draft object. You put in all the information in the content. If it's an in-class activity, if there's an attachment for student worksheets or things like that, that can all get added in. You can then submit it to the system. It'll go to a chief editor. That person will basically just check for alignment with sustainability, green chem, make sure that it's relevant to the platform. They may then need to assign it to a reviewer, or they might do the review themselves, but just to make sure, again, that those 5 categories are met. Once that's there, it will either get accepted and then it gets published into the system, or it might get sent back if they need revisions. So that just means if you've forgotten to attach something, if the safety information has not been included, if there needs to be a couple other things added in, then that's where that initial thing that would go. But we do want to make sure that we're checking for those things before we share it, especially if there is a safety component to it. So this is just the process that we had to go through with our developers to create this sort of workflow with the system. And so we won't go through all of this today. I'm not going to show you all of it, but I will show you what the form looks like and then ultimately what the learning objects look like too. So if you did want to submit, you would just go to submit a resource. You would add in the title, what it would be. You add in the contributors. So that is the authors or the users who are contributing. You do have to add your own name as well. This is just because of the technical way that the system is built, but you add your name as well as any other users who you'd like to include as co-contributors. If, for example, they collaborated with you on an activity, on a set of labs, whatever it might be. You can add an image, you can add the summary, keywords, the object type, the time required. So 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. The audience level. So again, this will help with filtering for anyone looking through the database. You can optionally add more information like the common pedagogies covered. So if it's problem-based learning, if it's student-centered, if it's distance learning or self-instruction, whatever the case. The NGSS standards too, if that applies. You can add the student objectives, the rationale for submission. So why are you submitting it to the GCTLC? Why do you think it's important for others to see it? Again, this really is just what is the alignment with green chemistry. You can add in the principles as well. And reminder, this is really to help with filtering and sorting and searching through the library. The UN SDGs, if you'd like, that's optional. Again, rationale for that. Safety hazards. So this one's very important. Obviously, if there aren't any, you can just put NA, but we do have to check that it's there. Any qualitative or quantitative implementation data. So that's just really, have you piloted it, or is there any feedback from your students already that might help others? Other notes and information. If you'd like a Creative Commons license associated with it, you can add that here. You can also request to have a digital object identifier assigned as well. So really depends on if you'd like it to be cited or not, be able to get that data to help with professional development, whatever the case. And then of course you can attach any number of additional files. So if you have, for example, sort of a method, experimental method, if there's student activity sheets, if there's teacher notes or an answer key, whatever the case, that can be added here. Alternatively, if the resource is housed outside the platform, you can just add a link. So you can add a URL. So I could add a, I don't know, Beyond Benign YouTube. And maybe I go to the recent info session. And I'm just going to use that. And I could add it in here, right? And then add the link to text so that when I create the object, it will just link out. And so we don't have to house the material here, but people can still search for it through the library. And so again, it's meant to be a community-driven thing for both internal resources as well as external ones. Finally, you can save it as a draft. So anytime you save things as a draft, you'll see it come up in your user dashboard. So I will show you one of my other users. Apologize, I have very many test user accounts. Okay, so here's a test user. Now I've created a number of test learning objects in this particular one, but you'll see that many of them are in different statuses. And we do have to clean up some of the tables a bit, but you'll be able to track all of them here. So I can see which ones are in draft still, have not been submitted. I can see which ones have been submitted and are ready for review. I can see which ones have been accepted. I know which ones have been published already. That's these ones. We need to adjust the titles again, but all of that can be tracked within your user dashboard. Okay, so once you've completed all of this, you can submit the form. You'll see that there are a number of questions on the right-hand side. These are just what the review questions are. So the reviewers will go through, answer these questions, which are not accessible to the user, but once the reviewer goes through, they'll have a look at them. They'll be able to answer, submit the form. The user will get an email saying this has been the result of the review. It's all accepted, great, goes up on the system once it's had some final touches, and that'll be it. So once it is available in the database, once it's published, then other users will be able to see it. And once you go to it, it looks something like this. So you'll see the title, the contributors, and this was a test one we did a few days ago. You'll see the summary, any safety precautions, so hydrochloric acid is an irritant, et cetera. Copper solid 2 sulfate is a skin irritant, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can also, again, add any other learning objects that reference this one or that relate to it. You can have the file. So for example, here's the file with the lab experiment, the teacher notes, et cetera. You'll be able to access it once it's available. So voila. You can, again, put a Creative Commons license, and you can add comments. So if you have additional comments you'd like to add, you can put them in here. So this lab is great. And then you'll be able to see it. And so the goal is to really create a conversation around how well are these resources working? Are they, people loving them? Are they trying new adaptations of them? Should we be having more discussion around them? So we want to try to foster that discussion in the system. And that's why we wanted to make sure this type of functionality was built into. We've added, for example, the NGSS standards. So those are here on the left-hand side. The learning goals, student objectives are also here. So all the information is included within these objects. Okay, I'm going to point to 2 more quick things, but first I'm going to stop and ask if there are any major questions about how this works or any major feedback or sort of thoughts as I was walking through this.
Of course, Annette has a question.
Sure. I love Annette's question.
So, you know how the comments and the feedback come in there?
Mm-hmm.
So whose responsibility is it to update that? So for example, Reactions Lab has been shared, somebody's running it, and then they, in their comment, in their feedback, they have a question. So is it the person who uploaded it, or is there going to be a staff on the GCTLC that constantly monitors it?
Yeah, great question. So right now, what we'd like to do is set it up so that the main contributing author for the learning object gets an email notification anytime a comment is made. And so it would be up to them to be able to then respond. Now, we do have specific moderators, for example, for forums, for groups, for discussions within dedicated spaces. So we could also have them support some of this as well. And we do have a chief editor who I think is going to have sort of oversight over all the learning objects and the library. So it could also be up to them to decide. But the original goal was to have the contributors, whoever's contributed the object, be the one that would receive the notification and then be able to respond. We do have to be kind of checking comments regularly, because we do want to make sure that things are in line with the code of conduct, for example. So another option we have is to be able to approve comments before they go up. And if we put that in place, then that would allow us, well, force us actually to review them before they go up and be able to respond to them appropriately. So that's another option. So I'm certainly open to thoughts and ideas, but the goal was to have the contributing author, whoever has actually submitted this object, would be the one that would get the notification. Is that in line with what you think, or do you think it should be set up differently? I'm open to thought.
I'm inclined to saying, I don't like your question. I'm just kidding. But I don't know. I didn't know what I expected. I'm glad you answered it.
No, that's okay. I mean, I don't, I think it's a very important question. It's come up a few times already. That was sort of the general direction we were thinking of going. But if you have other thoughts, I'm certainly open to it. So we do want to allow for this, because I think it's important to kind of foster discussion around resources. But you're right, we need some level of moderation around it. So we do have a few options for how to best support that.
Okay.
All
I
right.
have another question if
Yeah,
nobody
of
else
course.
is
Go
asking.
ahead.
So when you were going through and showing, so once somebody has contributed, they're going to have a section where they outline the safety, outline the objectives.
Mhm.
And I know that earlier you mentioned that the NGSS are going to be linked to this. So then can people just put the letterings of the performance? So like
Yes.
HSPS12 instead of saying
Correct.
everything that it says in there. So as they contribute, can they just put those?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So if you would prefer to just write just the code, that's totally fine. The way it's set up is it's just a text box. We've thought at one point about, should we have a drop down with all the standards included, but because there's so many and they change frequently, we didn't think we'd be able to keep up with them. So we figured the easiest thing was a text box for now. So if you want to just include the code, yeah, no problem. But again, just trying to make it as easy for people to search and to find it. So if we have a search field in the library for NGSS standards, then if people are putting the codes and people are searching by code, then that will work well. If people need a bit more nuance, then it might be better to include the full description in that field. But again, we'll sort of leave it up to each author to decide. Yeah, Adele, go ahead.
Yeah, hi guys. So I'm actually from Australia.
Welcome.
And yeah, so yeah, this is so cool, by the way. This is really awesome what you guys are all doing. So I guess just from an Australian context, I think you've sort of just answered my question, but I'm unfamiliar with the American system, but I'm assuming the NGSS standards are certain standards that relate to not the teaching standards, but the education, like learning outcomes.
I believe that's correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Because I think because in our Australian curriculum, we also have codes associated with, like a biological context or a chemistry context, or whatever it is. So if I was to add some resources into this, in that NGSS box, I can just say this might be code 1.23 or something like that. And it would relate to biology, evolutionary biology or something like that. Right.
So the reason we did specifically NGSS is because we have already, so Beyond Benign is founded and based in the US, and many of our existing resources are specifically US focused, in that they had all the standards already written out. But we know that this platform is going to be global. We want it to be global. So we tried to sort of accommodate that. Now, we could just change it so that it's just as standards instead of NGSS standards, and then it's a bit more widely applicable. But I'm certainly open to that. We could certainly add additional fields depending on the country, but whatever would make it easier to follow. But yes, you're correct. NGSS is specific to the US. For example, in Canada, we don't have NGSS specifically. And so it is a specific system. But so again, if it would be helpful, we could certainly add that or amend it to be more broadly about standards.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, okay, cool. I might send you an email or have a separate
Yeah,
meeting with
please.
you.
Yeah, please do.
Thank
That'd be
you.
great.
Cool.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, Scott, go ahead.
Just to kind of piggyback and re-emphasize what Jonathan was just saying, we don't all have access to all the different curricula the way that chemistry is done around the world, but we'd love to be able to support the chemistry teachers across and the chemistry professionals across the planet in the way that they feel is most applicable. So as someone who I was one of the people who recommended we put the NGSS up on the GCTLC with the hope that we would be adding to it with other standards that fit more communities, so we could be a truly universal resource. So point me in the right direction so we can get the right resource up here and we can get everyone serviced in the way that will most greatly benefit their professional aspirations.
Yeah, totally agree. I think I see it from that context too. I had a conversation with Amy a few months ago now, because we're developing a green chemistry outreach program here in Australia with a green chemistry and manufacturing group. So I think, yeah, there's huge potential, I think, to collaborate and really expand what you guys are doing. It's pretty cool.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, please feel free to send me an email. Yes, I'd love to follow up and we can continue to improve this system so that it's more applicable more widely. Because again, we want it to be global, and we know that that's going to require a lot of feedback from others from other countries and making sure that it's going to work for them as well. So, okay. Any other major questions on the resources, on the learning objects, on the library? I know it's a lot. It's a big system, and we're still working through a lot of the kinks on things. But this is generally how it's going to look. I'd love to have some additional chances to get people, actually trying to submit things to the system. You'll get the emails. We can then walk through how the review works and things like that. So we will probably have more chances to do that leading up to the end of May and early June. But in the meantime, I really wanted to give a quick view of this. All right. So with that, I know we only have a couple of minutes left because we're done at the top of the hour. Yeah, correct, Greg?
Yes, I just have a few slides to go through at the very end.
Yeah.
But you're good.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay, no problem. So I guess what I will do is just one set of final sort of quick things. So we do have some specific questions that I'd love to ask, and maybe in the remaining couple minutes, I might just ask this first one. So, given the various functional components of the site, we'd love to get your feedback about, which parts of the site are you most likely to use or be interested in using, right? What would be most helpful for you, but also what parts would you share with others and recommend others to use? And granted, again, we didn't go through everything on the site yet, so I'd love to be able to get to those later, but maybe specifically with the library and the learning objects, what are some of the things that you would feel you would most likely find useful or that you'd like to share with others?
Well, I find the whole thing fantastic.
Okay.
And
Great to hear.
with the K-12 influence and leaning towards the K-12, I imagine that this would be really good to point anyone who asks you, well, I don't know what kind of labs to do, for Green Chem. This is a great place to, to have them go in there and just encourage them along the way, go by topic or go by unit and see what comes out. And I say, there's going to be feedback. You're going to see someone who's done it and all the comments that go with it. So it's really great.
Okay.
Jonathan, there's a question in the chat
from
Elizabeth about, given that so many American schools are now Google schools, would this be able to connect directly to Google Drive?
Right. So that's a good question. I guess it would depend on what is meant by connecting to Google Drive, in that if it's to be able to, for example, add these into a Drive folder or things like that. So in that way, no. we did look at whether to be able to have Google Drive built into the system for groups. And in the end, we sort of have that in that we have file structures available for groups. So if you're a part of a group, you can add documents to a folder within the group. And so you can access files in the group. In terms of collaborating on documents, unfortunately, that was a level of development that we couldn't build in this initial phase. So it's not going to be possible to collaborate directly on documents within the GCTLC, but you can include, for example, links to Google Documents and link out to your Google Drive from a group space. So that for now is the best workaround we have. In terms of the library of objects, no, unfortunately, we don't currently have an integration with Google Drive, but we could look at whether that's possible in the future. I guess that might be a bit more complicated, but certainly, again, each learning object has the ability to link to things, and each learning object will have its own distinct URL. So if you can add URLs to a Google Drive, you could certainly do it that way too. I don't know if that answers the question. I guess the short answer is I'm not 100% sure, but for now, there's no formal Google integration. Any other thoughts? Any other quick feedback on sort of this particular question? So thoughts about the use, thoughts about what you liked and didn't like about what you saw, so the library in general. Again, for the May Observe, Wonder, Think, we're going to get into a little bit more on the collaboration side. So that includes the forums, the events calendar, and the group structure. And so once we get there, we'll have a little more chance to look at those things. But because it's such a large platform, we can only get through so much in one day. So I think I'm gonna leave it there for now. If you have any other questions, please feel free to add them to the chat, or you can also email me. I will keep my email up on the screen for a brief second. And I will also say a huge thank you to Greg and to the rest of the Observe, Wonder, Think team for letting me share this today and to talk to you guys. So I'm going to turn it back over to Greg momentarily, but you can again take down my email if you'd like, and I'm happy to get back to you with any answers I can.
Yeah, and we'll put your email in just a second as well.
Sure, no problem.
Let me get right back over here. So like Jonathan said, he's going to be back with us again next month to continue the discussion. The dialogue in May will be on creating and fostering community spaces within the GCTLC platform with a focus on groups and forums. We have already dropped a link. Michelle put a link in there for a shared Google Doc. Feel free to return to that document as you continue to look at or think about the GCTLC platform and add any questions or comments that you have. We'll organize those thoughts and we'll use them to guide further discussions next month. Thank you for your input this evening. It was fantastic. Join us again for the next Observe, Wonder, Think on May 18th at 7 p.m. as we continue to explore the GCTLC a little bit further. As always, please feel free to check out our other events and share our resources online at beyondbenign.org. As a thank you for being a part of our green chemistry community, there's just a few days left to get in the drawing for a giveaway for 5 copies of Green Chemistry Theory and Practice signed by Dr. Warner. So get that in. The Earth Day is going to be the day that we draw for those. I do also encourage you to check out the Lemelson Foundation Impact Spotlight interview with Dr. John Warner. This is a great resource to pass along to others who might be asking what this green chemistry is all about. As a reminder, we also offer virtual professional development opportunities for middle and high school teachers over the summer. Optional graduate credits for each course are available. We have some sponsorships available for teachers in New York, Oregon, Washington State, and for those from an environmental justice community. Please share this information with colleagues that you may know in those areas. More information as well as dates and times can be found by scanning the QR code on your screen or by going to beyondbenign.org and searching for online courses. Thank you again to all of our supporters who help make this monthly event possible. And one last time, thank you again to Jonathan for sharing his time, his talents, and his positive energy for the green chemistry community. Thanks for joining us this evening. We look forward to seeing you again next month. Good night and be well.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.